meetings. Good evening and welcome to this special call meeting of the Board of Education for our continued conversation around the search for a new superintendent. As we do before each of our meetings, we have a time of invocation, which will be led by Kimsey, and then Ron will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Last time I talked on this time, I talked about the changes that were about to come, which you all didn't know about. And we're going to have a year of changes. Probably going to have a year of upset and discussion. And I have my book, I call it the day book. I put appointments and all that kind of stuff in it. And I also put some, I think, words of wisdom in it. And thinking about change, I found this. Would you like to change the world? Start with the person in the mirror. Ask them to change their ways. No message can be clearer than that if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself. With that, I would ask you to join me in a moment of silence, reflect on that. Thank you.
I invite you to stand and join me in the pledge to the flag. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and with that, I'm a little loud tonight. Thank you, and with that, I will call this meeting to order. Welcome everyone that's in the room with us, those that are joining us by live stream, and make a note that all board members are present in the meeting. Our first item of business is approval of the agenda. Are there any modifications?
I'd like to ask if we can have a public comment section. I forgot to mention that previously in my email to you.
Chris, you need to turn your mic down and speak in it.
Sorry, I said I'd like to ask if we could have a public comment section since we have members of the community here. I don't know if that's normal or not for special meetings, but.
Well, typically we don't have public comment at work sessions. We do on regular business meetings.
If you want to make the motion to amend the agenda, we can have a vote on that.
Sure. I move that we add a public comment section after item 1 before item 2 on the current agenda.
Is there a second? If not, the motion would fail. Do I hear a motion? Is there any other modifications? If not, do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as published?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. So this is the agenda that we will work from tonight. So the first item of business is to finalize the application and advertisement for superintendent search. So I would begin that discussion by letting y'all know that Kimsey and I heard from Ron and Chris as to items that they wanted added or changed in the application and or the advertisement. You'll find those changes in paragraph 1 and 3 of the advertisement and on page 5 of the application in different types so that you can see that. And Chris, I know you submitted several other questions, but after reviewing those, Kimsey and I felt like the majority of those questions were perhaps better interview questions than application questions. is why we didn't include those in the changes. Before we go any further, I do have one question for Mr. Campbell or Ms. Paula. On the first page of, or not on the first page, but on the advertisement where we're inserting performance scores, is that all we're inserting there? Are we inserting anything else? Graduation rates?
That would be in consultation with your superintendent and administration. What I would suggest is that the chair and vice chair approve the final paragraph, but that you ask your administration to come up with that information highlighting all of the positive things you want to highlight about the school district there.
So that would be the place where we would actually add a little more than just the performance scores.
Right,
We
and
would-
it wouldn't actually have to be necessarily good news either. It would be the facts, what it is.
Right, and,
Graduation rate, performance scores, what a superintendent, and Dr. McDarris is uniquely positioned to help you with this, what a potential superintendent would want to know about the district performance kind of in a succinct way.
Okay.
I'd like the record to reflect the fact that I submitted 16 questions, none of which were included. They covered a wide-ranging topics among withholding of information from parents at a minor student's request, the role of co-parenting, the normalization of casual sex, premarital sex, kink, fetish, etc. How the proposed superintendent includes to treat all schools equally and with transparency. I would like to make sure that the minutes include the questions, along with the district information that I asked regarding the number of students, mean income, median age, average educational level of parents, percentage of single and dual parents, key economic contributors, and a number of other factors around English as a second language, and the number of students that are on educational assistance or financial assistance.
And I apologize, I did forget to mention that last piece of information you just mentioned. I think we could prepare a fact sheet with those facts of median
Thought that was
income, median age. There was one line on there I wasn't sure about, but I think we could probably come up with a fact sheet based on those last things you just mentioned.
Chris, what was the last one you had there? Something about financial assistance?
Yeah, so the questions were number of students, number and average age of schools, so that the incoming superintendent will know the age of the school buildings, mean and median income from the average district, mean and median age for the district, average educational level of parents, percentage of single parents, dual parents, multi-parent sponsorship of students, key economic contributors and employers, net migration of people in large companies into or out of the district, percentage of multilingual families, percentage of families with English as a second language, percentage of students on educational and or financial assistance / support.
Okay, that's, last one's the one I was referring to. Are you asking there for the percentage of children that are on free and reduced price lunches?
Among other things, yes.
I'm not aware that we offer anything else other than that.
Well, there's other kinds of educational assistance, individual education plans, IEPs, et cetera, that I think it would be beneficial for the incoming superintendent to get a fair assessment of the environment that he's walking into, he or she, sorry.
I'm not sure that we can provide that information. I'm also not sure we could. How would we provide the average educational level of parents?
That information is available from demographic input from the census that was taken in 2020, would be the most recent one. So that information is readily available through public records.
There was one of them, and I didn't think we could get the information. It was something about single parent, double parent, multiple parent, that sort of thing. I don't know that information is collected.
That information is also part of the census.
But not,
I'm not sure that we need to include that
Sure
as
we-
part of the
but not.
information
tended to
packet. I think if I were seeking a job, I would be doing my own research. we don't want so much that it's, I guess, overwhelming.
It's 11 lines of data.
I tended to think that that fact sheet had some good points, but I'm not sure it needed to be included in the application nor the advertisement. But we could certainly have it available in the interviews. And I see nothing, I think we could do that in the interviews, pass out, here's some additional information, and we're okay. But I just didn't want to see that, another page in the application and that sort of thing. And I think that went pretty much too about some of the questions, Chris, is they're great questions in an interview, but I'm not sure we wanted them on the application and get 45 or 50 pages of stuff in the application. Whatnot. We did include 2 of them in the application. In the whatnot, it says provide examples of your experience with school bonds, building projects and renovations. I thought that was a great and certainly needed to be included since that's where we are on the thing. And then provide examples of your experience with preparation of annual budgets, communicating the fiscal responsibilities to the board, the county commissioners, and the community stakeholders and staff. Absolutely. Dr. McDarris does that in many different ways, and we do too in our meetings with the reports that we're given and that sort of thing. But again, I thought we needed to have that information in the application. And there's several of your questions. If you don't ask them, I'm going to ask them in the interview.
I don't know why we wouldn't want to pre-filter candidates by asking the questions in advance, and rather than wasting our time interviewing the candidate after getting them here or virtually or otherwise. But that's at the rest of the board's opportunity to choose. But I submitted 16 questions that I thought would be very valuable as part of a pre-selection, pre-screening process. But at the end of the day, that's up to you all to decide collectively with us.
That was my take on it.
So are we, I'm not sure exactly where we're going with this.
Tanya,
like me
did
to
you and Ron see those
offer a
questions?
suggestion?
Could you hang on just a minute?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Let
Oh, no,
Chris
we're
speak.
fine, yeah. So as we decided last time in your meeting agenda, just process. What we'd like for you to do tonight, because of time considerations in getting this out, is to go ahead and finalize as your first order of business tonight, the application and the advertisement. You can take them in turn. I would suggest you take the application first, and you can see that from the version that you've got last time, the only thing that was added is at the end. There are 4 questions, so I will point out to you again as information. On the very first page, you're asking for a writing sample which includes their desire for the position, their educational philosophy, long-range goals, and outstanding accomplishments. Most candidates will give you that. They'll give you an interest statement and why they're interested in the position of the superintendency here in Transylvania County. You then go to the last page and you're going to get 4 more statements from every single applicant. The first one would be for them to give you their position on developing and implementing quality technical and workforce development programs. Secondly, leadership styles, particularly in maintaining staff morale and meeting the challenges of academic performance of students. Third, providing examples of their experience in the preparation of annual budgets, communicating fiscal responsibilities of the board to the county commissioners, community stakeholders, and staff. And finally, provide examples of your experience with school bonds, building projects, and renovations. So you're already going to get 5 different statements if you approve this application from each and every applicant. You're going to receive all of the applications, all of the work history, and then at that point, you will decide how you want to narrow the field, whether you want to do some online interviews or some Zoom interviews with some of the candidates, or based on the interest level you have, you'll decide the next step at that point, and you will move to finalizing interview questions. So certainly everything that Mr. Weiner has submitted based on what the chair and vice chair have said will be considered as part of that process of coming up with interview questions. But Madam Chair, I would suggest you see if any board members want any other changes to the application, and if not, would really encourage you to take a motion, because we do need to get this out there to meet your deadline of July 1.
Okay, well, so at this point, then I will ask if there is a motion to approve the application. Let's do it
Okay.
one at a time. To approve the the application as presented tonight.
All right, so move.
Is there a second?
Second.
And is there discussion? If there's no discussion, motion's been made and properly seconded. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say no.
No?
So that motion would pass 4-1.
So now I would ask the same thing regarding the advertisement. And you can see the changes there and track changes that have been made, rewording the doctoral statement to say an earned doctorate and classroom teaching experience is preferred. And then later in the document, in the fourth paragraph, to add that Transylvania County is a multi-layered, diverse community. In addition to prosperous urban areas, advanced academics, and a thriving retirement community, the county also has a prominent percentage of people living below the poverty level. So this is the version that was approved by chair and vice chair. So again, it would be appropriate to take a motion and a second, and then see if there's discussion or desire to amend this further.
Is there a motion to approve the advertisement as presented? To approve, did I say that? To approve the advertisement as presented. Sorry.
Good.
Yes, and with the inclusion, thank you, Ms. Lovett, that your administration will work with the chair and vice chair to insert the performance information.
Thank you, because that was my
Thank you. So that would be part of the motion.
performance scores and additional information about the school system.
Okay, to facilitate discussion, I will move that we approve the advertisement with the inclusion of the paragraph drafted by the chair and vice chair and the superintendent with pertinent information regarding the system.
Is there a second?
I'll second, then I have a comment.
Okay, now that,
I'm
is that
frantically,
for discussion?
yeah, I'm frantically looking for that we also have a large percentage, we have a lot of people who are only part-time residents. Summer residents.
I think that would
Is
be
that in there?
the retirement community.
It's a multiverse community in addition to academics and a thriving retirement unit, prominent living below the poverty level.
We could say part-time residents or seasonal residents. We could add seasonal residents to this list very easily. Yeah, that the community, in addition to prosperous urban areas, advanced economics, and a thriving retirement community, the county also has a seasonal population and a prominent percentage of people living below the poverty level.
That would be good.
Okay. Okay. So why don't we get all the changes and we can have that be a motion to amend, Madam Chair. We'll add that one.
Okay, other discussion, other changes?
This might sound as a weird question, but I'd like to know, what's the alternative to an earned doctorate?
We can just say a doctorate in classroom teaching. We can take out the word earned. I think the only other distinction would be an honorary doctorate, and I don't think anyone would put forward an honorary. So your point's well taken.
Well,
I think
unless
I lived in Dubai,
unless
there were
it's
plenty
George
of them.
you
Santos.
English majors on the board can decide whether or not that word's needed or not. It might be redundant, yeah.
I lived in Dubai, and there were plenty of them that
think
were bought. So I just want to make sure that we're differentiating between earned and bought or honored.
So do you want to leave it or take it out? Is your thought to leave it or take it out?
I preferred the original text, so.
We could actually change the original sentence to prior teaching experience and a doctoral degree are preferred but not required. So we could-
I would agree with that. I was the one that asked the earned doctorate in classroom teaching experience preferred, so the change that Chris suggested addresses the two issues I was concerned about.
Yeah.
Okay? And I'll repeat these when it comes time for the vote.
Other questions, comments, changes?
So I assume that the other question, fact elements that I asked to be added are not gonna be added to this.
I think one of the things that was just mentioned is the fact sheet, and I think, again, for timing, I would encourage the board to go ahead and get this advertised tomorrow, and then move to developing the fact sheet. And at your next meeting, we could approve the fact sheet, and then when folks apply, they could be provided with the fact sheet. So I don't think you need to necessarily wait on the fact sheet until interviews. You could do the fact sheet much earlier, so that your applicants have that additional information. That'd be one way to handle it. Because I think your staff will need to look at the census data and probably work with your Chamber of Commerce to come up with a robust fact sheet. And that'll take a little time. And I'd really encourage you, again, not to delay this process waiting on the fact sheet.
Well, could we also put that fact sheet on our, I mean, we provide it to the candidate, but we could also put it on our website.
Absolutely.
So when they start looking at us, then they would have that fact sheet.
I would be content with that.
I would just like to say, I mean, I'm not trying to delay the process. I just wish in this there were a little bit more about our schools. I mean, it's all about the county and life here. I mean, we've got one sentence: these schools represent the future and pride of Transylvania County. I wish there were more about our schools because they are amazing.
And Dr. McDarris can speak to this, but I think when superintendent candidates are applying, I think they do some homework and go to the websites and look at the individual schools, pull up the ABC reports, look at demographic data. I think your better candidates do a little homework, but you can probably speak to that.
They will. They will, if they're serious, most of my colleagues will do the same thing any candidate would do. They will check a variety of sites. They will check the ABC site. They will check the census site. They will check the school system's websites to see some of the information there. They will probably, if it were me, I would check the North Carolina Department of Commerce websites. I would check the My Future NC websites. I would check the North Carolina Justice Center websites on child poverty, and I think they will do that.
They will. And I mean, if they're gonna move here, then they're certainly gonna research the area too.
Right.
You know, so I
And the
just
school-
wanted to say that.
No, and to your
camera of
point,
it.
no,
Oh,
I
sure, yeah.
I think that's next point. To your point, I would hope that they would look at each of the schools' websites as well.
Is that on here somewhere? That's on the application, huh? See, that's why we need to take a good look at it, 'cause I don't remember
What are you talking about?
whether that's on the school
would-
website is on here anywhere or not. I don't see it on the.
No, I don't think the
advertisement.
I don't know that our, you're talking about our website?
That's a good point. We should add the Transylvania County Schools website to the advertisement.
We probably ought to
I
do
think
that.
that's an excellent point, and I think the place to add that is right after the performance indicators.
Right after what, Chris?
Right after the
Right
performance
here.
indicators. That's, so it would be the second to last, it would be right above applications must be received. We would say, for more information, please visit the Transylvania County Schools website. Although, again, I will tell you, if a candidate's not smart enough to go find your district website, I don't know that you want them to be your superintendent.
We should do that, I think.
No,
Still
but
not a bad idea to include it.
I think it would be a good idea to include it.
We will, sure.
And I also was
What
just,
say you? Good, bad?
I was also gonna mention along those lines of where we talked about certain performance scores. At our last board meeting, one of the things that was on our agenda was our graduation rate at Brevard and Rosman High School, that Brevard High School and Rosman High School exceeded academic growth. All that information was presented at our last board meeting. And I wonder if that would be part of the good things that we would want.
In other words, you think we should expand it some?
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think you can. Taking Ms. Dalton's point, I think you can work with the superintendent for individual characteristics of communities and schools. It's not just numbers. So I think you can expand that paragraph to include some of that too. Sure.
Yeah, we didn't say how many teachers we have and that sort of thing either, so we definitely could add that on the fact sheet.
Okay, so any other changes? Would you remind us, Mr. Campbell, of what
Yes.
we've done so far?
So again, we do not need to stand on ceremony tonight. Somebody can make a motion to amend, or Mr. Kivanemi and Mr. Jackson can accept this as a friendly amendment to your motion. But the changes would be, number one, we would add in the fourth paragraph that the county also has a number of seasonal residents and a prominent percentage of people living below the poverty level. That's change number one. Change number two is at the beginning paragraph, it will say that prior classroom teaching experience and a doctoral degree are preferred, but not required. And then the third change is we will insert a reference to the school district website. And then also an understanding that when the chair and the vice chair and the superintendent work on what we're calling the performance indicators, they'll also put information in there that would be helpful about the communities and the schools and other good things, or things that a candidate would want to know about your schools that are not just numbers. They can beef up that paragraph to give a little local flavor rather than just focusing on the county.
I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
Would you accept that as a friendly amendment?
I will second the amendment to the motion.
Very good. So you can just vote on the motion as amended, Madam Chair.
Okay, is there any further discussion before we do that? If not, all those in favor of the motion as friendly amended, please say aye.
Aye.
And that would pass unanimously.
And
That would complete that.
that's gonna go out tomorrow.
Yes, sir. That will go out tomorrow, and Ms. Lovett looked into Education Week, and it's on
Okay.
your amended timeline. Education Week is $895. It's a flat rate, and it will go out in Education Week. I think they posted for up to 90 days. We don't need 90 days, but that's the minimum. So it will also be included in Education Week along with the other sources that we mentioned.
Okay?
Yes, it will go out tomorrow.
The next item of business would be to discuss and finalize the survey. And everyone has a copy of that to look at.
And can I address a couple of issues on that?
Absolutely.
Okay. First, let me tell you a few changes that were recommended by Dr. McNaris, and I think they're good changes, and I think you can follow them pretty quickly. Is if you look on the second page, this is under question 2, and come down 5 lines. It is the sentence that begins, has experience with building and managing schools. He suggested that you add and/or educational programs to that sentence. Now, that could also be a separate question, and we'll come back to this, so just kind of jot that in, and/or educational programs there. And then on questions 3, 4, and 5, instead of saying not important, he suggested that nomenclature, that phraseology be changed to not required. In other words, is that a required trait for the superintendent, a preferred trait, or not required, just for consistency? And people can view the phrase not important in different ways. I think that was a fair comment. So he suggested changing it to not required at that point in time. And then when you come down to question 9, he suggested 2 additional questions. There would be a new second question that would say, preparing students now for the workforce of the future. And there would be a new, that's the second, 3, 4, 5th question, right after the increased partnerships, that would say involvement in statewide educational partnerships. So how important is it to someone that the school district superintendent also be involved in a statewide level with educational partnerships? So I think those were all good changes. We also looked into several questions that Mr. Weiner raised at the last meeting. First of all, can the survey be set up so that if I answer I'm a parent, I get a different set of questions than if I answer I'm a staff member or I'm a community member? Yes. We can set the survey up so depending on how you ask, it will send you in a different direction. I believe SurveyMonkey will also allow somebody to fill it out multiple times. So a staff member could first fill it out as a parent, then go back in and fill it out as a staff member at that point. So we can do all that. Happy to do that. We're not here tonight to finalize the survey because really it would be difficult for all 5 of you to try to do that. If you want to go that route of the initial question will send you in a different path of questions, then what I would recommend is that 2 of you kind of work with our office to kind of come up with that separate set of questions to be able to bring back to the board. We're not in as big of a hurry on the survey. You want to get it right. Now, you can decide, though, that for time and convenience sake, you don't want the survey to trigger different questions. You're going to ask the same questions of everyone, but you will allow people to fill it out multiple times as a parent or as a staff member. So those are just things, time and energy, depending on how you want to spend it. The other question was putting it in different languages. SurveyMonkey does not offer that as a service, so you would have to pay someone to take the questions and put them in Spanish or in a different language. It can easily be done, and the survey can be online in Spanish. So those parents, but you would have to pay somebody to interpret that. And if you're going to have some open-ended questions on the survey where they can fill in comments, you would need to pay that same person probably to interpret those back into English from Spanish. So it's just a matter of seeing who you might have in the community that can do interpretation for you. There are folks that do that statewide, nationally. There's services online. There's a lot of ways to do that. But that's not something that SurveyMonkey offers directly. We'd have to do that ourselves. But again, easily done if you'd like to go down that road.
Dr. McDarris, what percentage of English language learners do we have now? That's probably not the current term, but they keep changing.
We have, I can tell you what the number is as far
Okay.
as percentage. 185 students, but I'll have to calculate the percentage of that. 185 out of
200.
3250 roughly.
5%.
Yeah, 5 to 6%.
That's less than 10%, be 320, that's about 5%.
And again,
Yeah.
it's not hard to interpret the questions in a paper copy too, and distribute those paper copies to those students. And say, if you'd like to take this home, have your parents fill it out and bring it back in, that you can offer that too. However you want to do it.
But that's overwhelmingly Spanish. We
No.
do have a couple of other languages, but
Well,
overwhelmingly.
I'd like to see us offer it in Spanish, if nothing else, to let our Spanish community know that they are an important part of the system.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, I think while that might be 5% of the student body, that definitely does not represent a percentage of the community as a whole.
No.
Parents are probably more than that. And I would like a mechanism to ensure that we do not allow somebody to ask sort of question survey multiple times.
You don't want somebody to be able to fill it out as a parent and a staff member?
I think there are mechanisms where we can allow people to to tick multiple boxes and get different questions based upon the tick boxes that they select, so that they could check, I am a parent of a current student and a teacher or an employee.
Well, we're talking about that question would unlock a different set of questions, depending on how they answered it.
Correct. And
Right, and that's what I said we can do.
right, but I don't think that necessitates that they be exclusive, that if you could be able to choose multiple questions, multiple answers to question 11, that would then guide you down a different set of questions.
And again, happy to do that. It's just somebody's got to sit down and map that out.
Right.
And that's going to take time and energy to do. And that's the only thing the boards we have worked with have never gone down the road of differentiating questions based on answers, because it takes time and energy for somebody to figure all that out. That's all I'm pointing out. And that's not something we do. We're not going to try to come up with that. It's not the technology. The
So-
technology's easy. It's
so the way
who's going to
question-
come up with those questions.
So the way question 11 is currently structured, which of the following describes your status?
We would put that, what I'm saying is we would put that up front. That
Right.
would be the first
So-
question.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What I was trying to say was that question 11 could be framed tick the appropriate boxes that reflect your relationship. At which point then we could go back to the idea of disintegrating the data across different collections, as opposed to making that a one selection.
Right. Now, the only thing I apologize that I'm not following you on is, so we do that now. The way this survey is set up now, if you ask the.
Sorry, the reason I'm asking the question is it doesn't specify tick all appropriate.
Right, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page, that the way it's set up now is that would not generate a different set of questions.
I understand. So
Okay.
my question is, the way the structure is indicated now, it suggests that you get to pick one option. What
Right,
I'm
I
saying
understand
is,
So
if
should
we
we
made
change-
this to say select all applicable,
Correct.
then we could do the data analysis that you suggested previously,
Agreed.
without having to have different paths of questions.
Agreed.
Yeah, you
100%.
could have,
Thank
you
you.
could have teacher with being a parent of a student.
Correct.
So-
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, so if we change number 11 to choose all that apply,
Yeah, choose all applicable.
then we would leave the rest of the
Then-
questions the way they are and would
Correct.
necessitate that.
And I would suggest moving that to question number 1.
Yes,
Make question 11, question 1.
I would agree with that.
Okay. Chris, in looking at these this Chris. Maybe I better start Chris C and Chris W.
There we go.
All right, Chris C. And looking at the first two questions, I would want my candidate to have all those characteristics.
So what you're trying to do is you're trying to get people to say what they really care about, and then over a broad spectrum, see if there's a consistency. So you are forcing people intentionally to have to choose to priority rank, so that you then start to see from a macro level, is motivating more important in general to everyone who filled out the survey than cooperative. So that there is a science behind giving them this exhaustive of a list, but then making them choose. That's the reason.
And you found that this has given boards beneficial information?
We have, I'll give you just one example. If creative is answered 65% of the time, then you've got a pretty good idea that the community wants to see something new. Things like that. Fair-minded, you got a pretty good idea that the community doesn't feel like the perception is that people are being treated fairly. So, it does show some trends.
Okay.
Or the lack of a trend shows you that, hey, well, maybe we're doing a pretty good job, because it's kind of across the board. So, it's just another data point.
And the way I go at things, when I first look at this list, I said all of them. Then I went back and it said only 5. So I'm still struggling with which 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
So that's intentional.
any one of those or all of them, certainly important.
And they are. They're all important. So we're trying to get a gauge of what people think the priority might be. And again, no pride in authorship, folks. I mean, we use various versions of this from time to time, so we can change what you want to change. And again, not looking to approve this tonight unless the board just kind of feels like you want to get this going and you're happy with these questions from a broad stroke. It's up to you this evening.
I would request time to provide further input.
Yeah, we can wait a little longer to approve it. Yes.
I think we would want the surveys to go out before we have community meetings, wouldn't you, or?
Yeah, I think they should be present. This document should be at the community meeting for people to submit their answers, or the link should be live in time for that, so that they can be told, here's where to go if you have input on the survey.
And we will send you, Ms. Lovett will send each of you the version of the survey with Dr. McDarris's changes. And we'll put those in track changes so you can see what his suggestions were.
Yeah, and I concur with Dr. McDarris's changes. They were very good.
I have another question. So I think there's 3 questions that require just a broad answer. It's not checking off a box. Is there a limit on like number of words? Can you get us?
Do you recall? There may be.
I don't know that we need to. I'm just just asking
Particularly
how
in
it is.
relation to number 7, 10, and 12, I think she's speaking to.
Right.
I have seen, because we'll get a spreadsheet at the end of it, and I have seen the questions go on and on. So, I have not seen a limit.
Okay,
We'll
That-
double
that's-
check and let you know.
There is.
okay.
Yeah,
There's an option to set short answer, which limits to 600 characters.
right, or 700.
Yeah.
My,
And I'm not saying we should, I'm just asking.
yeah,
I think we should encourage people to be pithy, so we don't have to read 5,000-page essays.
So would we want to think about that now, that we want to,
Why don't we find out what the typical
Okay.
restriction is and let you know?
okay,
my comment on question 7 was we probably need more than one line for the people to write on.
Well, this just shows you the questions. When you
You can
go
spread-
online to answer it, it expands the box, but you're right, when it comes to folks filling this out in paper, we'll probably just add them to add additional pages.
And the same thing on number 12, it's just one line. You may, some
Mr.
some people may get lost.
Just want to make sure our live stream has failed, the connection has failed.
okay?
I do have a recording. I am scared to try to reinitiate the live stream in fear of losing the recording. So I just wanted to let you know we're not live broadcasting right now, but we are capturing everything, and I can save that and post that later.
Okay,
Just wanted to make you aware of that in real time.
And again, it is now legal, you don't have to record at all now that the state of emergency is over. So you could certainly post this video after the meeting's over. Unlike the pandemic, you don't have to stop until you can reconnect.
okay, thank you for letting us know. Thank you. So we seem to be in agreement with the changes Jeff offered. We're going to find out about the limit on words, and we're all gonna take a little more time to look at it and finalize it soon. Is that what I'm hearing from everybody? Okay,
Would it be too soon to say that we would finalize it at our February 6th meeting? Chris W., I'm looking at you.
Yep. I have no objection to that.
it is a workshop. I don't think we've advertised for any action items at this point.
You could add, the other thing is you could, well, it's up to you. Yeah, you could add it. It's a time factor. You could always add it just as the only action item, or you could wait and deal with it at your next action meeting. Now's probably a good time to look at the calendar before you answer that
Bless you.
question, the
Yeah.
timeline. Just to kind of reorient ourselves, and I'm sorry, Mr. Weiner, I keep meaning to change this to say January through February and not January to February. But in any case, it is what it is. We'll get that changed. But
One of these
remember,
days.
you have a March 9 deadline, and so what we're hoping is that you have completed the survey and your community meetings by March 10th, that you are finished with all of that, so that when you get those applications, you've got all of that information to help you review the applications. So in terms of finalizing the survey, having it ready, I wouldn't wait a whole lot later than February 6th. That might even be a reason to try to see if there are additional comments and see if you could get to consensus on the survey at your February 6th meeting. But you've got the month of February basically to try to do your community listening sessions and to get the survey out.
Yes.
So if we're gonna try to do that in February, then we should try to do it on the 6th, I believe.
Okay.
Come to a consensus on the survey.
So please, same process. If you want changes, provide them to the chair and vice chair. They'll decide which ones they want to make, and then it'll come back to the full board. We'll just use the same process, if that's acceptable.
Okay,
Should we, if you want to suggest changes, shouldn't we share them with the whole board?
That's what I'm saying, is that it will still come
Then
before
you-
the whole board.
Connie and I will call them out, look at them.
Yes, yeah. You'll decide what you agree with, and we'll make those changes, and the
Right.
other changes can be discussed by the full board. Correct.
okay, that will move us on to the next agenda item, which is scheduling the faculty and community listening sessions. And I think Dr. McDarris was working on that some for us.
Do you want to, on the faculty, do you want to coordinate that with when they have a faculty meeting?
I think we should just schedule an evening meeting. I think they have, items they're already needing to work on at their faculty meetings, and we should just schedule I mean, not that I want to make the teachers come back more, but I think that we should have a separate meeting. I'm seeing nods.
Well, I
For
think that decision would be based on how we decide to cluster the meetings. For instance, would we want to have a meeting for Pisgah Forest and Davidson River together, and then Brevard High and Middle together, or something of that nature?
So can I ask a question to Dr. McDarris, thinking of staff? Is it common to ask staff from other schools to attend a meeting at Brevard High School, and then other schools to attend a meeting at Rosman High School? So that meaning Rosman Elementary, TC Henderson, Rosman Middle, and Rosman High attend a meeting together as staff, and then the other remaining schools attend a meeting together as staff.
Well, it's not common. If
Okay.
it's, now if you're doing a workshop, you know, we combine schools for workshops on professional development, but as far as meetings, that's not common. The other thing that you may want to think about when meeting with the faculty is, they do have other things to talk about, but it may be better to meet with faculties right at the end of the school day, because if you get into the evening, you will have a lot of faculty that have other things going on. They may be coaching, or they may be involved in other activities that they do, and also with their families. So I'll just throw that out.
Or
for
have a second
consideration.
job to make ends meet.
Some do, some do.
So then are we looking to have 9 different meetings with faculty?
Well, could we possibly have Rosman High and Middle together? They're there.
They would be the easiest to combine. Now, I asked some of my colleagues, some systems, and it's up to the board, but some systems are doing things such as the board is dividing up, and say two board members would go to different schools, not all 5 to all 9, which the board certainly can do, but that's just another option that I'm hearing out there that they do to.
So in a previous meeting, I had asked that we had 2 board members attend the sessions, and that we record the sessions so that the board members can view the recording of that. And I don't necessarily want that live streamed, but that should be a recorded session for the board to listen to.
They can, Mr. Whitlock and I have talked about getting some recording devices to be able to record the meeting.
Okay.
And I think that would be audio recording,
It's audio.
Yes.
not video recording.
I mean, the other alternative option is that we were to hold with the faculty and the student and the teachers and the staff would be to hold that over Zoom. That we don't necessarily even have to travel to make that, and that would allow us an immediate opportunity to record that, because Zoom has that functionality built in. If we could even use our inboard school Google Meeting capabilities to do that.
Personally, I'd much rather meet in person than Zoom. I had enough of Zoom meetings during COVID times. Not all of them productive.
I think it would be nice to go in person. I think they would feel heard. That we valued their time enough to come.
And we also have to be cognizant of the fact that we do have some areas of the county that do not have access to high-speed internet. And I'm not sure how many families
Well, that
have
would
no
just, he's
internet.
just talking about faculty right now, though.
Correct. And
Okay.
to do it at the end of the school
school
day
day.
so that
Gotcha.
they're on campus. Just trying to reduce the amount of them having to move around as well to accommodate us.
Well,
Can I ask-
one of the things we need to talk about too is what are our availabilities? If we try to go 9 schools, how many of us can juggle around, and we 2 and 2 or 2 and 3 and whatever number we want to can go to the schools. I personally would like to go to all of them.
Mr. Campbell?
And as you're adding this up, start with 9 schools, then add the community meetings, then add the community centers that you wanted to go to. And I think if you add all that up, you're gonna be up to 15, 16 meetings that you're gonna try to attend in 1 month. So I think you need to first decide how many of these you're gonna have and then
Right.
back in to your schedules. And the other thing too, I'll just suggest to you is 2 members is great. 1 member still says, I think people understand if you say we are trying to have 16 meetings, 15 meetings in a month. So what we've been able to do is 1 board member per site has been able to commit. I think folks understand, because remember what you're doing. You need a note taker at every single one of these meetings. And it is not important what Chris Campbell said or what Tawny McCoy said. We don't need to be nailing people down and saying this person said this. You're looking for issues, characteristics, and traits. And when you take and pull that information together, you will start to see themes start to arise. You'll see themes from your faculty, themes from community members. So really, you just need a good note taker who's just writing down the issues that people bring up or the characteristics. So for that reason, and then the last thing I'll say, and again, this is just from experience, these are all good things to bring up. People don't like to be recorded. They don't. People don't like to be audio and video recorded. And I think some people will not feel comfortable speaking out at a meeting if they know they're being recorded. So I just offer that up. Again, I'll just tell you from my experience, it's not necessary to record it because, again, it's not important who said it. What's important is what is the issue, the trait, or the characteristic that they brought up.
Right.
So I just throw that out there for your consideration, that I do know people are very hesitant about being recorded.
The other thing,
Well,
some of the
it's-
faculty meetings are all on the same days. They're Mondays or Tuesdays primarily.
Say that again?
Faculty meetings they tend to be on the same days, Mondays or Tuesdays, because they're 9 individual schools, and so,
But if we're not if we're not using their faculty meeting as the time,
no, if you're
it
not,
doesn't matter.
it's not. I just, it's up to the board. I just know that if you have them come back later in the evening, you might not have as good a turnout.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. If we're gonna meet with the teachers, I think it ought to be, we're gonna meet with the teachers, I think it ought to be after school.
And I can't remember how many community sites the board wanted.
Well, we haven't
Do you
talked.
remember
we-
from the last meeting?
I don't think they pinned that down.
I don't think we have either. Let's
That was gonna
resolve.
be my next comment. We need to think about that,
A
but
lot of
let's,
meetings.
Okay, so let's resolve a few things as we go through here. So do I see nods that we want to have the meetings at the schools in the afternoons, not in the evening?
I think that's best. I think that's best, but I know it might give you a
It might
problem.
affect Chris and I, but
Yeah.
that may be
I
the
don't
meetings
know
we
about
can't attend,
Tanya
or
and
we'll,
Chris, see, that's why I said we need to know what your availability is. Is it anytime, any place, or there specific days you can't be there, can't do it?
I think we'll have to build a list of,
So my recommendation would be that we merge Davidson and Pisgah Forest. We do Brevard, Central Brevard, and then we do Rosman, and ask the TC Henderson staff to come down for it. So we'd end up with 3 staff meetings.
I think we'd get better attendance with individual schools, but I could be wrong.
I'm certain we would.
And that's what we want. That's what I want. I want maximum input from the teachers and the staff. Whatever that takes, within reason. No parties, anything like that, but
okay, so we have competing views here. So, Tanya and Ron, how do you feel about meeting in more of the schools or trying to combine the schools to have less meetings?
Well, my heart says we should attend all the schools, but when I start looking at the calendar and the amount of time that we have to do schools and communities, even if we split up 2-on-2s, there's gonna be a large number of meetings there in a short period of time.
So Jeff, how do you think staff would perceive combining some schools and having the meetings in the afternoon?
You just gotta get them time to get there. When I have Superintendent's Communication Council, I have representatives from every school, and we normally are not able to start until about 3:45, so you just have to figure in commute time.
Now, I will point something out. I've also had boards decide that they want to use existing representative groups, like Superintendent's Advisory Council, and ask the principal, lead teacher, teacher of the year, advisory council, to gather at their school to come up with a list of concerns, characteristics, traits, and then let that group present to the board on what that school's issues were. I've seen boards do that too. So you're asking the school to come up with their own list, and then a representative from the school come to a bigger meeting and present that. That's a way to bring everybody together. It's a representative model rather than you actually going to every school, but I've seen that done as well. I just thought
You
that,
say come to a meeting here,
or wherever.
wherever.
Yeah, wherever. But you're asking for representatives to come from each school to a meeting and speak on behalf of their school and summarize the concerns from their school. It's more of a, representational model.
Yeah, that's exactly what we do with calendar committee.
Right.
That's a possibility. We could devote a couple of meetings just to that, or a meeting, whatever was necessary.
To hear from the schools individually.
Have it all right here, yeah.
Yeah.
Then there wouldn't be any problem recording it and whatever, and we would all hear pretty much the same thing, which I think is good, not absolutely necessary, but good. That's another thought.
Thoughts?
Actually, I think I like that model.
Say again?
I like that model. Have representatives from each school collect data from
One or-
their
one or
staffs
more. I
and then
mean,
bring it.
It doesn't have to be limited to one or more, and the principal, and
As long as we made that representational meeting open to people who were concerned about their information not percolating up, then I could support that. But
So
my
if somebody else wants to come,
my concern is that information gets filtered the more hands touch it.
understand.
that's the
And
downside.
that would be so,
That's true.
So I would be very pro having a 4 o'clock meeting at Davidson or at Pisgah Forest, one at the high school at 4 o'clock, one at the other high school at 4 o'clock. I could do those on Mondays or on